Hi, hello everybody. I'm Justin. This is Koopa. Welcome to Koopa's Corner. Today, we're going to talk about WrestleMania 41. WrestleMania 41 is just a couple months away in April. April 19th and 20th from Las Vegas, Nevada. Right now, it is currently early February. And, back in October, I made a video way too early predictions for WrestleMania 41, and that was about 6 months out from the event. Since then, a lot has happened, right? We've had two new championships in the women's division. The Royal Rumble has happened, so we have two people who are guaranteed a championship match. The Elimination Chamber is coming up. We're very well moving and grooving, working our way towards WrestleMania, and I thought, hey, this would be a great time to update our predictions for what matches we're going to see. Now, even with these updated predictions, there's a lot that's still up in the air, and these may or may not happen. But we'll have to wait and see. Now, I think that I honestly, cards on the table, I really liked the match card that I had going better back in October. But a lot of those things feel off the table now. I feel like we are moving in a very different direction, and I'm sure that this is going to be fine. It's going to be a solid event. WrestleMania always is. But if we get a match card like the one that I'm about to predict, it's just not going to live up to that same hype from that previous one. That being said, you might feel differently. You might think this is awesome. And so let's just get into it, all right? First match I'm going to predict is main event Jey Uso getting a championship match against the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes. I know that the match with Gunther seems a little bit more likely, but from a storytelling perspective, it just doesn't make as much sense. This is the title that Roman held that whole time he was with the Bloodline. This is the title that Cody took and made a big deal about his father not having. And there's a lot of family history for both sides in here. And that history has already been alluded to with Jey Uso's decision making. He hasn't made his decision yet, but it's already been alluded to. So I think from a storytelling perspective, this is what makes a lot more sense. His character wouldn't choose Gunther, and he's going to come across as much dumber if he does. So I'm going to predict this, even if it feels like it's the less likely option. Just the way that the story is being told, I just have a feeling this is the direction. I think a match that feels a lot more locked is going to be CM Punk versus Seth freaking Rollins versus Roman Reigns. Now, this as a triple threat, I kind of hate, to be honest. Punk versus Rollins is what I had predicted all those months ago, and we got it at the Raw debut of Netflix. And now, if we go in the direction of a triple threat, which does feel much, much more likely, based off of the Royal Rumble fallout, that all that happened on the outside of the ring when they got eliminated, this feels like Roman is sort of the odd man out, and he just kind of got thrown into this match because they're big stars, and he had nothing better to do. When, he probably could have been facing The Rock. But right now it feels like The Rock is not going to be involved at all. Which is a shame, because that is a legitimate dream match that those Cody crybabies robbed us of. But now we're going to get stuck with this triple threat match, which is going to be good. But it's just kind of weird. That's my prediction anyway. Next up, I'm predicting another triple threat match. This one is Gunther defending his world championship against both John Cena and Logan Paul, both of whom really seem to kind of be building a feud of their own. I honestly almost predicted John Cena versus Logan Paul on its own, but Gunther's had stuff to say about both of them. Cena's had enough to say about the world title. Him chasing the 17th world title. It just made a lot of sense. And this feels like a much better way to give Cena his 17th world title than over Cody Rhodes. He could win it by pinning Logan Paul. It protects Gunther a little bit. It just feels like it's a likely direction that they could go. Something that is a little bit more solid is going to be Tiffany Stratton defending her championship against Charlotte Flair. This match was very obvious even 6 months ago or 4 months ago back in October. This was my predicted match for the women's WWE Championship back then. I'm sticking with it. I don't think much has changed. Charlotte Flair winning the Rumble very much feels like that. I'm also going to predict that Rhea Ripley will defend her title against Liv Morgan. They're going to have another match, this time at WrestleMania 41. And I think that everybody was pretty ready for this feud to move on after Rhea won the championship back from Liv on the Raw debut of Netflix. And it sort of seemed like they might move on from each other up until this past Monday when Rhea inadvertently helped Liv qualify for the Elimination Chamber. So we do have the benefit of not doing this immediately after the Rumble that I did get to see Raw and SmackDown this week. But, I think that it's just the match. There's enough history there. It's just the match that makes sense, and I think they're going to go back to it. So Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan. Rhea accidentally helping Liv qualify for the Chamber is going to bite her in the ass. Liv's going to win the Chamber. Another women's match I want to predict is Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill versus Naomi in a triple threat match. And I think a lot of this is going to have to do with who attacked Jade, with the fact that Naomi sort of just took the other half of the tag team championships after Jade was out instead of them relinquishing the titles. I think it's just going to be a little bit messy. I think the bigger money match is obviously Bianca versus Jade one-on-one. That felt like that's what they were building to all year long, and maybe Jade is just not as far along as they'd like to put that big of a spotlight on her. I don't know. But Naomi feels a little too integrated into this story at this point. The other option is they could go with Naomi as a special guest referee, but I think a triple threat is a little bit more likely. All right, next up, I'm going to predict Jacob Fatu with a big emphatic victory over L.A. Knight. Yeah, I think that, honestly, this just gets Jacob Fatu on the card. I know with these predictions, I am not going to be talking about every single person. I think some people are unfortunately going to get left off the card, and I hope I'm wrong about some people, and I hope they find a way to get them on. But for this video, I probably should have started with this. I'm sticking to the same format that I had in the last one, right? Where I'm predicting, instead of the usual 5 matches per card, WrestleMania is much bigger. I'm predicting 7 matches per card. And WrestleMania being 2 nights, I'm predicting 14 matches total. So Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight, we're halfway through. That's 7 matches. And I think that it is a priority for them to get Jacob Fatu on the card, and this is a nice emphatic victory based off of some tension that they've had on SmackDown recently. Now, is this the match that makes the most sense? No, it's not. Honestly, it probably should be Jacob Fatu versus Solo Sikoa. But he's been kind of butting heads with LA Knight a little bit, and you can save that for a more developed storyline down the road. But, we'll see. I would rather see Solo. Hopefully Solo is a little bit more involved. But since he lost the Ulafala to Roman Reigns, he's mostly been MIA. We'll have to wait and see, right? If Solo Sikoa comes back, then probably Solo Sikoa. But for now, I'm saying L.A. Knight. Next up, I think we're going to have the Women's Intercontinental Championship being defended by Lyra Valkyria against a returning Becky Lynch. I think that with Charlotte being in a Women's World Title match, you do not put Becky in the other Women's World Title match. But she's going to come back. She's going to go after a championship she's never held. She's going to win the Intercontinental Championship from Lyra Valkyria. So I think that there's a pretty big moment there. Also, speaking of crowning new Intercontinental Champions, I think Sheamus finally gets his big moment, his big crowning moment against Braun Breaker, finally winning that last title that he's been so vocal about. So Sheamus versus Braun Breaker for the men's Intercontinental Championship. Next up, I think we're going to try to get some people on the card here. We're going to have a big multi-man match, a big multi-man ladder match, and that is going to be DIY versus the Street Profits versus the Motor City Machine Guns versus Pretty Deadly. So we're going to have a 4-team tag team match for the tag titles on SmackDown. I think there's a pretty obvious match that I haven't talked about yet, and that is Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens, right? The rivalry that never ends. And I mean that in a very good way. I'm not sick of them at all. These two have so much history, and they produce such chemistry when they're together. I mean, it's an art form. When people say fight forever, it's not hyperbole with these two, right? And we don't mean have a match that never ends, ever. We just mean continue to fight throughout your entire career. And these two have done it. They've got a 20-year history. They've fought in NXT. They've fought on the main roster. They've teamed. They've done pretty much everything there is to do together. This match probably would have been elevated by the World Championship if Kevin Owens had beaten Cody Rhodes at the Royal Rumble, but he did not. So I think we're going to get this match. And, he attacked Sami Zayn this past week on Raw, kind of blaming him for his loss. And I think it's very obvious that's the direction we're headed. They could always face each other at Elimination Chamber and move on from each other at WrestleMania, but why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. So, you write Sami Zayn off for a couple weeks, you have the Elimination Chamber, then you bring him back and challenge Kevin Owens. Right? I'm going to predict a couple more matches here, because I think right now we've done 11, 3 more matches to stick to that format that I mentioned. And so I think this one might be like an early on the card match, maybe second match of the night 1. But I think we're going to get American Made versus Penta, Rey Mysterio, and Dragon Lee. Just playing off of that, Chad Gable has trouble with luchadors thing that they started for basically no reason. This gets Penta, Mysterio on the card. This gives Dragon Lee a little bit of experience and a little bit of spotlight sharing the ring with them. Chad Gable can produce a great match with anybody. So just a nice 6-man tag match. And you just get Penta a big win at WrestleMania. That's all this is about. It's kind of a throwaway match to get Penta a big win at WrestleMania. Next up, I think we're going to have the Raw Tag Team Championships defended by the War Raiders against the New Day. Right? Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods have essentially been booed out of the building in every arena that they've shown up at since, they kicked Big E out of the group. And, my heart wants so badly for a triple threat, Big E versus Kofi versus Xavier. And it's just not going to happen. Big E is, unfortunately, he's not going to be cleared medically for this match. And it's just too bad. Right? But the New Day, since they've been heels, it's been great. They've been performing at the next level, right? 10 years of the New Day, and boy, did it not feel like it, right? Time flies. But it's one of the best tag teams of all time. And, their act had gotten a little stale, and they had slipped down the card, and they weren't really being featured. And, this heel turn was just the injection of life that they needed. And I think that you have 2 established stars in Kofi and Xavier, and you reward that sort of new life that they have by giving them a tag title match. And I think one more match to predict to hit 14. So I'm going to say the Women's United States Championship, and that's going to be Chelsea Green versus Piper Niven. They've teased a little bit of tension there, with Piper being, sort of inadvertently eliminating Chelsea Green from the Royal Rumble. There's a lot of history between the two of them. They've been a team for a while. And Chelsea Green is an absolute gem. I'll say it in every single video that I produce. She is an absolute gem, and you can't leave Chelsea Green off the card. So those are my updated predictions for WrestleMania 41. We've left some big names off. I'm sure there's a spot for them somewhere. Hopefully, we can make this work and get some of these big names on the card. But I didn't want to do, fatal four ways and big multi-man matches up and down and left and right and all over the place, but AJ Styles is without a match. Drew McIntyre is without a match, and that's criminal. So I'm sure he'll be involved at WrestleMania. I do not think they're going to leave him off the card, but I didn't know where to put him. I came up with these matches, and I could still keep going and keep going and keep going, and they might do more than 14, but I hit this, and I was like, you know what? No, but this is, I'm going to stick to that format for a reason. So Drew McIntyre's off the card. Damian Priest off the card, right? Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, the Judgment Day, as big as the Judgment Day was, Damian left, Rhea left, and they have fallen so far down. And, you could get Priest involved somewhere with them again, but he's on SmackDown now. You could do Finn versus Dom. They've teased tension there a little bit. I mean, there are options to include them, but I just don't see it. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Do you feel like this is much more realistic than the last one, especially if you've watched that last one? I had some pretty big predictions there. I think those were some pretty big matches. This one doesn't feel quite as big, but it feels a lot more realistic to me. Let me know if any of the names that I'm missing you think are it's crazy that they're left off. If you think they're going to have matches, let me know. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.